In a brilliant flash of light, a young hero, Kusa, confronts a demon lord. He mockingly asks if the villain has forgotten about the legendary weapon in his hand, the great holy sword, whose power can erase all darkness and end the evil reign. With a dramatic cry, Kusa unleashes his ultimate attack, the super holy sword slash. However, the grand battle is revealed to be a story, met with the slow, unenthusiastic clapping of a crowd of bored children. An elderly woman, Elder Gertrude, finishes her tale. She explains to the children that this was the legend of how the first hero vanquished a demon lord. She smiles, pleased with her storytelling. But her satisfaction is short-lived. Internally, Gertrude admits the story was lame. The children agree, with Kusa laughing and complaining that the hero's special move was just a simple, boring slash. The children's critique continues. One girl finds it too easy that the demon lord was killed in one hit, while others complain about the hero's flashy effects, lack of comrades, and the demon lord's boring personality. Having heard enough, Gertrude's smile turns into a grimace of frustration. She angrily declares that story time is over and tells the children to go home, as they mutter about her lame stories. As Gertrude walks away from the village, a mysterious figure clad in dark, imposing armor appears. The figure calls out to Gertrude, saying it's been a while. Gertrude greets the armored stranger, Ramia, as an old friend. They exchange playful banter, with Gertrude joking about her own age and Ramia teasingly complimenting her. As they walk through the streets, Ramia observes that the once small village has grown into a decent-sized town. Gertrude seems to have something else on her mind. Gertrude sighs, telling Ramia that she didn't have to force herself to applaud during the story. She laments that kids these days just aren't impressed by classic heroic tales. Ramia, however, gets worked up. She exclaims that they aren't out of touch. It's the children who are wrong. She passionately defends the stories she thought the kids would like. After a moment, they both calmly agree that yes, they're definitely out of touch. Changing the subject, Gertrude smiles and asks Ramia about her conspicuous helmet. Ramia, holding her helmet, simply responds with a hum. As if to dismiss any concern, she states that nothing could possibly go wrong. Suddenly, a young guard with light-colored hair, Alexander, appears. He aggressively confronts the armored Ramia, demanding to know who she is. Alexander grabs Ramia, calling her sketchy and tired-looking. Just then, Gertrude intervenes, calling him a little shit and telling him to let go of her friend. Alexander is stunned to see the elder. Gertrude calmly explains to Ramia that the boy is Alexander, one of the town's guards, and apologizes for his bad mood, trailing off before giving a reason. Gertrude waves off Alexander, sending him to find Kusa. He grumbles about being ordered around by the damn granny, but is shocked to find Ramia has silently appeared right behind him. Completely changing his tone, Alexander bows and sincerely apologizes for his disrespect. He formally introduces himself as Alexander, a 27-year-old soldier of the town. He begs Ramia not to tell Elder Gertrude what he said, explaining with terror in his eyes that while she seems like a nice granny, she's super strong and scary when angry. Ramia is amused by his desperation. Ramia gives a thumbs up and a wink, agreeing not to worry as long as he helps find the kid. A relieved Alexander thanks her, then asks for her name. The mysterious figure, shrouded in a dark cloak and armor, finally reveals her name, Ramia. Their search begins. Alexander complains about his bad luck, while asking some kids if they've seen Kusa. Meanwhile, Ramia looks around, admitting that the city has gotten so big she's completely lost. Alexander observes that Ramia's voice is a strange mix of a young adult and an old person, making it impossible to guess her age. He wonders aloud how old she really is. Ramia chuckles, playfully chiding Alexander. She advises him that it's tactless to ask a woman her age, as they might just beat him up for it, before continuing their search. Meanwhile, elsewhere in town, the theme of heroism is very much alive. A figure stands cloaked against the sun as children look on, with the promise that once again, A hero shall rise to face the forces of evil. The scene shifts to a group of kids playing. The boy, Kusa, strikes a heroic pose on a rock, declaring himself as the brave hero who will be his friend's opponent, promising to make the grunts of the evil lord pee their pants. His friends are not having it. One boy shouts back that Kusa isn't playing the hero this time. He's been assigned the role of a demon underling. They complain that he can't always get the good role just because he's a bit strong. Watching from the side, Alexander finds the kids' argument amusing, noting it reminds him of his mom. He and Ramia interrupt, with Alexander calling out to Kusa that an acquaintance is here. Ramia calls out a friendly, "Hey," and they walk over to the group. Alexander questions Ramia being an acquaintance, doubting Kusa would forget her. Kusa confirms he's never seen her before. Ramia casually admits she only heard about him for the first time just a moment ago, much to Alexander's disbelief. Annoyed by the interruption, one of the boys yells at them not to barge in. He charges forward, claiming Kusa needs to be taught a lesson, but he misjudges his path and runs face first into Ramia's armored chest with a loud thud. The boy stumbles back, his hand glowing from the impact, completely stunned and flustered. As his friends run off, he bows deeply to Ramia, apologizing profusely before running to catch up with them. Alexander dryly remarks on the kid's innocence for getting so flustered over a bit of boobs. Kusa simply stares in awe, while Alexander internally corrects himself, thinking that it was definitely not a bit at all. Kusa, now completely impressed, tells Ramia her helmet is cool. When she agrees, he excitedly asks if she can remove it so he can see her face. Ramia agrees instantly, much to Alexander's frustration, who complains that she's ruining the dramatic potential. With the helmet off, Alexander is shocked to see Ramia is far younger than he expected. He notes she doesn't look much older than him and has numerous scars on her face. Kusa, meanwhile, thinks the scars are incredibly cool. Ramia playfully dodges questions about her age and scars, claiming she's just clumsy. She tells Kusa she's an acquaintance of his family, which only confuses Alexander more, as he wonders how she could possibly know them. Kusa proudly asks if Ramia knows the story of his grandmother, a hero who defeated a demon lord long ago. Ramia looks away, vaguely confirming the story. Inspired, Kusa declares that he'll become a hero just like his grandma someday. The group sits down to rest. Ramia offhandedly mentions that she's a hero too. Kusa is floored, shouting in disbelief, while Alexander looks on, completely unconvinced. Kusa then asks a sensible question. Don't heroes have a holy sword? Ramia gives a terrible lie, claiming she lost hers. While Kusa naively accepts this, Alexander is flabbergasted by her blatant dishonesty. The trio of Alexander, Ramia, and Kusa sit together on a hill, looking out at the vast, sun-drenched town before them, a moment of quiet contemplation. As dusk approaches, Alexander points out that the sun is setting. Ramia decides she needs a place to sleep and declares she'll stay at Kusa's house. Kusa is thrilled and agrees, since she knows his parents. Alexander panics, insisting Ramia can't stay at his place because he only has one bed. Ramia smirks, resorting to blackmail by reminding him that he wouldn't want Elder Gertrude to hear about his earlier insults. Defeated, Alexander begrudgingly agrees to let her stay for just one night. As they walk off, Kusa waves goodbye, wishing them both a good night. The scene focuses on a quaint, rustic house nestled amongst the trees, its wooden structure bathed in the soft light of the day. Inside, Ramia looks around and comments that the house is quite nice. Alexander proudly boasts that after working for 10 years, he has earned himself a decent home. As Alexander relaxes, Ramia playfully bonks him on the head and begins acting like a grand hero again. Alexander, annoyed, points out that she can stop pretending since Kusa isn't around anymore. Ramia casually tosses her large, horned helmet aside. Alexander looks at it and sarcastically asks where she dug up that piece of antiquity from. Removing her cloak, Ramia reveals her muscular and curvaceous figure in a tight outfit. Alexander is instantly flustered, blushing, and sweating. Ramia smirks, asking if he likes what he sees, to which he can only stammer, "Shut up." Despite trying to play it cool, Alexander admits she has one hell of a body. Ramia, striking a pose, cheerfully announces that it's time for him to open himself up to Mommy Ramia, leaving him speechless. Ramia's demeanor suddenly turns serious. She notes that Alexander seems unnaturally tired, something Gertrude had also confirmed, and asks him what the real problem is. Annoyed at being treated like a child, Alexander retorts that he's 27 and much taller than her, trying to deflect the question. The scene shifts to a vulnerable Alexander resting his head on Ramia's lap. He begins to open up, explaining that he wasn't born in the town. At age 8, his parents were slaughtered by a monster, but he and his little sister were saved by Elder Gertrude, who was the region's chief knight at the time. Alexander continues, explaining that with no relatives, Elder Gertrude gave him and his sister a home. Still haunted by his parents' death, he became a guard. Ramia listens, then says that's all great, but her playful demeanor vanishes. She tells him to stop beating around the bush, as this isn't what she was asking about. In a sudden display of strength, she lifts him straight up off the bed with one hand on his head. With a crash, Ramia slams Alexander down onto the bed, pinning him. She asks if he really thought he could get away with a lap pillow without telling her what was truly bothering him. As Alexander looks on in confusion, Ramia kicks off her boots and stands over him. With a grin, she announces that since he's such an impertinent big boy, they're going to have an adult game. She pins his neck with her foot and lays out the terms. If she loses, she'll stop asking. But if he loses, he'll tell her everything and be at her beck and call for a day. She taunts him, calling him a virgin boy, which provokes an angry denial from Alexander. Ramia is caught off guard by his sudden, furious outburst, her taunting expression replaced with one of mild surprise. Fueled by indignation, Alexander turns the tables, declaring he'll make her eat her words. He scoffs at her muscles, claiming she's tiny compared to him and shouldn't get so full of herself. He easily overpowers her, pinning her to the bed and grabbing her chest. Ramia immediately switches to feigned helplessness, crying out that he's an animal for attacking a small, weak girl. Triumphant, Alexander declares it's payback time and warns her to prepare herself. The game ends with Alexander utterly defeated and passed out on the bed, while Ramia sits up, stretching as if she just had a light workout. Ramia casually apologizes, admitting she might have gone overboard. She notes that the bed seems to be a bit broken from their struggle. Lying in the wreckage, Alexander complains that she manhandled him like a toy despite her smaller size. Amused, Ramia reminds him that he lost the game and now has to spit out the truth. Defeated, Alexander finally starts to explain. He tells her the trouble started 2 months ago, when a renowned priestess who had come to the village alone disappeared deep in the northern woods. He continues that since the priestess vanished, multiple other disappearances have occurred. A total of 8 women have mysteriously vanished without a trace, with the most recent case happening just 1 week ago. The mood becomes somber. As Ramia listens silently, Alexander reveals with a heavy heart that the last person to disappear was his sister, Kara. A flashback shows his sister, Kara, holding a basket. Alexander explains that she had business in the northern forest and went on her own after they argued about the risks. By the time he rushed to the forest after her, it was too late. He tells Ramia he's been searching for 7 days without finding a single clue. He theorizes that a sick individual is targeting women and purposely avoiding men, which is why he hid the truth from everyone to minimize the risk to other women. Having heard his story, Ramia says nothing. She simply gets off the bed and silently begins to put her boots back on. As she heads for the door, Ramia tells him she'll be back later. A panicked Alexander tries to get up to stop her, but his body seizes in pain from their earlier fight, and he cries out as she warns him not to follow. Ramia tells the struggling Alexander that he'd be of no help anyway. She reminds him of his own words, "The culprit avoids men," so she has a better chance of drawing them out alone. As Ramia leaves, an image of his sister, Kara, appears in Alexander's mind, yelling at Ramia from the doorway, calling her a dumbass for playing the hero. The next morning, Kusa sees Ramia preparing to leave and calls out to her, asking if she's heading to the northern forest and if she's not scared of the curse. Ramia just laughs, reminding him she's a hero and will gladly punish any naughty boys who attack her. Putting on a brave face for the boy, Ramia ventures alone into the dark and imposing northern forest, the light fading behind her as she walks deeper into the trees. While walking through the eerie woods, Ramia is startled by a sound nearby. She stops immediately, her senses on high alert as she turns toward the noise. The sound leads her to a small, trembling creature huddled in the grass. It's a fluffy, big-eared animal that lets out a pitiful little cry, instantly capturing her full attention. Her tense, battle-ready demeanor immediately melts away. Completely dropping her guard, she crouches down with a warm smile, calling the small creature, Otomo, a real cutie, and gently petting its head, oblivious to the danger lurking just behind her. As Ramia pets the small creature, she asks what it's so scared of. She fails to notice the giant, slimy tentacles of a monster erupting from the ground directly behind her. The tentacles instantly wrap around Ramia, trapping her. The creature is identified as an underground octopus, a rare monster that secretes a powerful paralyzing toxin, which is especially potent against females. Ramia struggles against the monster's grip, realizing she can't move as the toxins take effect. Below, the small creature Otomo watches in terror as she desperately begs for help. As the monster taunts her, calling her a scarred woman, the small creature, identified as a Kachuli, begins to glow, preparing to use its enlarge ability to strengthen its body and help Ramia. But before the Kachuli can act, a massive shockwave obliterates the octopus monster. Ramia stands calmly amidst the destruction, brushes herself off, and says, "Just kidding." The force of Ramia's blast is colossal, leveling a huge swath of the forest and cracking a nearby mountain, sending a tremor that reaches the village below. Back in town, Alexander and Gertrude are shaken by the earthquake. Alexander wonders about the cause, while Kusa, full of childish bravado, believes the tremor is a reaction to his own awesome power awakening. In the now devastated forest, Ramia stands over the remains of the octopus. The little Kachuli, Otomo, looks on in absolute confusion, its planned transformation forgotten. From a hidden location, two unseen figures panic. One, named Akira, frets about how their monster was defeated so easily. The other reassures him, confident that they can still fool Ramia with their charms. Following its master's plan, the Kachuli activates its special technique, Super Cute Mode. It strikes an adorable, teary-eyed pose, hoping to disarm Ramia with overwhelming cuteness. The cute act fails spectacularly. Ramia's hand slams down with a sickening squish, crushing the creature instantly. On the ground, a cracked egg reveals the creature's true nature. Ramia holds up the crushed, monstrous true form of the creature. She states that she's familiar with beasts and monsters, but correctly identifies this one as something different, a reincarnated person from a parallel world. Dangling the creature by its tail, Ramia offers it a choice. Either show her where the victims are, or she will torture it for as long as possible. She smiles, assuring it that she has plenty of time. Terrified, the creature agrees to help if Ramia promises not to kill it. Ramia grins, satisfied, and says, "Good boy." The path forward opens into a strange clearing, where the trees are twisted and a bright light emanates from deep within the forest. The creature leads her to a cave hidden by a nature spell and vomits up a key. Ramia realizes this is why no one could find the hideout. Beasts don't have this kind of magic, so the pipsqueak must have been given a password. Inside the cave, the walls are lined with strange, root-like structures, glowing with an ethereal light. Ramia finally finds the missing women, huddled and terrified. She approaches one of them, her sister, Kara, but the woman flinches away in fear. Ramia reassures her sister that she's safe now. But it's a trap. A monstrous spider-like creature ambushes her from the ceiling, while Kara, whose hand is disturbingly mutated, grabs Ramia's arm. Enraged, Ramia questions the spider monster, asking how it dares to attack her and Otomo. With a single, swift motion, she smashes the creature into a bloody pulp against the cave wall. Ramia then turns her fury on the reincarnated creature she's still holding. She crushes its head, coldly stating that it had told her 2 of the captives were killed for being disobedient. Ramia stands tall, telling the dead creature she won't kill it, as promised. She then announces that she forgot to mention there would be retribution, and that she also happens to have a bunch of swords with her. On cue, a group of shadowy, menacing figures holding swords emerges from the darkness, surrounding the last remaining creature. The figures are revealed to be the rescued women, now armed and ready for revenge. As the creature begs for its life, they, along with Ramia, relentlessly slash it to pieces. Standing amidst the carnage, her face spattered with blood, Ramia looks back at the now-dead creature and calmly states, "Well, that takes care of it." Just as the others process their freedom, one of the rescued women, holding a knife, furiously confronts Ramia, demanding to know how she could do such an awful thing to her beloved masters. The woman lunges, but her knife shatters against Ramia's skin. Ramia quickly deduces the truth. The attacker is the High Priestess, the first victim, who became an accomplice to her captors. The priestess is stunned that Ramia is completely unharmed. Feeling some pity, Ramia decides to leave the priestess's fate to the other women. The priestess looks on in horror as the shadowy, vengeful forms of her former fellow captives surround her. One of the women accuses the priestess of treating them like garbage while helping the monsters kill their friends. The priestess, revealing her name as Natalia, scoffs at them, confident that a bunch of nobodies can't defeat her. As Natalia powers up, vowing to burn them all to a crisp, Ramia calmly walks up behind her and delivers a powerful kick, shattering Natalia's leg. Natalia screams in agony, shocked that Ramia attacked her after saying she wouldn't. Ramia simply leaps away from the brutal blow. Ramia calls Natalia mentally defective for taking her words literally, asking if all her nutrients went to her chest instead of her brain. From the side, Alexander can't help but notice that Ramia's are even bigger. With Natalia completely incapacitated, Ramia turns to the other women and declares, "Ladies, she's all yours." Natalia desperately pleads that she was brainwashed, but her victims are already closing in. As the women take their revenge, Alexander notes that a priestess helping monsters is an unforgivable sacrilege. Ramia watches the bloody scene, sarcastically commenting on how virtuous he is for wanting to spare Natalia's life. Ramia clarifies that the idea is to leave Natalia's fate to the church. One of the rescued women smirks, agreeing that the church will be far better at making her regret her actions. The scene cuts back to Alexander, who is struggling to get dressed. Despite his body being a wreck from his game with Ramia, he's determined not to stay home while she risks her life. Just as he's about to leave, Elder Gertrude appears and swiftly knocks him unconscious with a single karate chop, telling him he's too dense to understand what Ramia truly is. A while later, Alexander is woken by shouts that the missing girls are back. He rushes to the town gate and is stunned to see Ramia carrying the massive carcass of the underground octopus, having returned in just 2 hours. The crowd murmurs in awe, amazed that Ramia carried the giant monster with just one arm. Kusa proudly points her out to one of the rescued women, who seems to be his mother. Amidst the celebration, Alexander finally reunites with his sister, Kara. He pulls her into a hug as Ramia watches from a distance with a knowing look. Alexander pulls back from the hug and is horrified to see his sister's eyes are vacant and lifeless. He looks at her, a sense of dread creeping in. Ramia places a comforting hand on his shoulder. Overwhelmed, Alexander embraces his changed sister again, apologizing because he doesn't know what else to say. As Alexander cries, a new, authoritative voice asks Ramia what she is doing here. Ramia watches with a sad expression as she enjoys a brief moment of peace. Ramia turns to see the town's mayor madam, Kaya, who also happens to be Kusa's mother. Kaya coldly asks if Ramia expects her to have forgotten everything after 30 years. Kaya turns to the crowd and loudly denounces Ramia, declaring that she is a monster who has committed an unforgivable crime against all of humankind. With pure hatred in her eyes, Kaya tells Ramia that something like her doesn't deserve to be in her city, ordering her to get out of her sight. Ramia's eye twitches with suppressed emotion. The crowd is confused. Alexander can't believe his grandfather has seen Ramia before, but Kusa points out the impossible truth. Ramia looks exactly the same as she did 30 years ago. Looking defeated, Ramia says it's fine, as she didn't plan to stay long anyway. She bids them farewell and begins to walk away, leaving Alexander speechless, unable to even thank her properly. A dejected Ramia walks alone toward the town gate, the large crowd silently parting to let her pass, casting her out of the village she just saved. As Alexander and Kara start to follow, Kaya furiously blocks their path. She warns them not to dare go after Ramia, or they can forget about living in the town, smashing a post with her fist to punctuate her threat. Kaya shouts at Gertrude, unable to understand her actions. She reminds Gertrude of a past tragedy, showing Ramia lying amidst destruction, and insists that Gertrude should be the one to hate Ramia more than anyone else. Enraged, Kaya grabs Gertrude, telling her not to call her superficial. She screams about how happy she was as the proud daughter of a hero, but declares that what Ramia did that day was unforgivable. She vows to never forgive this selfish bitch. Gertrude calmly notes how impressive Kaya's hatred is. She then turns to Alexander and Kara, telling them to hurry and catch up to Ramia, dismissing Kaya's threats as reckless. Meanwhile, as Ramia walks away from the village, she wonders where she should go next. Her thoughts are interrupted when she is startled by Alexander and Kara calling out from behind, thanking her profusely. Ramia turns around, and a genuine, warm smile spreads across her face as she sees the two siblings approaching her. Alexander, with newfound respect in his eyes, tells Ramia she wasn't kidding and that she really is a hero. Ramia feigns a bad memory, but Alexander can't help but be sassy back. Kara remarks that it's rare to see him so open with someone, ending the chapter on a hopeful note. In the forest, Ramia, in her distinctive dark cloak, magically summons water and offers it to a weary Clea and Alexander. The two are exhausted from a previous ordeal, with Alexander stating he needs to sit down for a bit. Clea expresses her amazement at Ramia's abilities. Ramia nonchalantly explains that summoning water is a simple magic, but her ability to materialize swords is a personal, little-known magic she developed, which functions like a magical storage room, activated by a hand sign. An elderly woman with her hair in a bun suddenly appears before them. Ramia and Clea turn to face the newcomer, who addresses Clea, calling her a hard worker. The woman, Madame Gertrude, sternly scolds Clea for her recklessness, telling her that entering the dangerous forest was an incredibly stupid thing to do. A guilty-looking Clea respectfully acknowledges her as Madame Gertrude. Alexander suddenly gets angry, as if to defend Clea's actions, but he quickly stops himself and apologizes. Clea admits that she was fully aware of the risks, but chose to proceed anyway. Changing the subject, Clea presents a beautiful, glowing flower to Gertrude. She wishes her a happy birthday, admitting she is a week late. The flower is identified as Vale's Tears, a rare bloom that can ease the pain of old age. Gertrude is visibly moved and shocked, realizing Clea braved the perilous forest just for her. Clea explains that she managed to find the flower just in time. Overcome with emotion, Gertrude embraces Clea in a tearful, heartfelt hug, expressing her immense relief and joy at seeing her safe. As the emotional reunion unfolds, a young, spiky-haired boy, Gertrude's grandson, runs towards the group. He looks up at Ramia and the others with wide, excited eyes before calling out to his grandmother. The boy excitedly points at Ramia and reveals to his grandmother, "Hey, Grandma, you won't believe it. Miss Ramia, here, she's actually a hero." like you were before. This revelation hangs in the air, catching Ramia's attention. Gertrude smiles fondly and confirms the boy's observation, saying that Ramia is an old friend of hers, and even more than that. Beside them, Ramia listens to the exchange with a quiet, contemplative expression. The scene shifts as Gertrude holds a small, ornate orb. She thanks Ramia for coming, and Ramia ominously replies that after what she's done, she can't stay here. Alexander and Clea look on, confused by this cryptic exchange. The story flashes back 30 years to a time when a younger, fully armored Gertrude was known as a great hero. She stands tall, holding the orb and explaining that with the demon lord gone, the region should be safe, and if she's ever needed again, her name just needs to be spoken while holding the orb. In the flashback, it's revealed Gertrude is speaking to a young nun named Kaya, who is crying and begging her not to leave so suddenly. Gertrude apologizes for leaving her in the dark, but promises that if Kaya still believes in her and uses the orb, she will return. Returning to the present, a split screen shows the transition from young hero Gertrude to the elderly woman she is today. She explains that after she had started losing hope while searching the forest for Clea, she suddenly remembered the orb. Gertrude concludes her story, saying that just a few hours after she remembered the orb, Ramia appeared. Ramia scratches her head, sheepishly admitting she was a bit far away. The panel hints at her arrival in a large suit of armor. Ramia abruptly shatters the serious atmosphere with a mischievous grin. She makes a suggestive joke about not expecting Alexander to hide his problem so much that she had to roughen him up the hard way, in bed, causing him to spit his drink out in pure shock. A flustered Alexander tries to insist it's all a misunderstanding. However, Clea, her face a mask of horror and fury, cuts him off with a string of curses, screaming at him to shut up. The argument explodes. Clea furiously accuses Alexander of having fun with the bombshell Ramia while she was held captive. Alexander retorts that it's a private matter. All the while, Ramia watches the chaos unfold from the middle with a smug, entertained grin. Overwhelmed with frustration, Clea turns to Ramia for comfort, asking for a hug. Ramia playfully agrees, calling herself Mommy. Gertrude's grandson, seeing this, adorably mimics Clea and asks for a hug too. Ramia happily embraces them both. Ramia internally reflects on Clea's resilience, finding it impressive that she can remain so powerful after such a horrible experience. Her comment is laced with irony, as in the background, Alexander and Clea are still glaring daggers at each other. After things have settled, Alexander has a quiet moment with Gertrude, expressing his relief. Meanwhile, Gertrude's grandson, Kuga, tearfully apologizes to Ramia. Clea comforts the crying boy, telling him it's okay and that he was saved by a great hero. His resolve hardened, Alexander stands at attention before Ramia. With a look of utmost seriousness, he formally addresses her as Madame Ramia and declares that he has a request. Ramia is amused by his formality, telling him to relax and just call her Ramia. Before she can finish her sentence, both Alexander and Clea shout in unison, their voices filled with determination. "Please train me." Ramia is taken aback by their request. Alexander insists that as Clea's older brother, he needs to become stronger to protect her. Ramia's expression turns serious. She knows bringing them along is a death sentence. As she weighs her options, a smirk appears on her face as she decides on another way to answer their plea, clenching her fist. Instead of a verbal answer, Ramia gives them a demonstration. With a sudden pop, she activates an ability and splits into two identical forms. One stands coolly while the other strikes a bizarre, muscular pose, leaving her would-be students to witness the strange power she commands. Clea and Alexander are left speechless by the sight of two Ramias. The two Ramias explain that the clone is weaker, but they are mentally linked. Alexander can't help but question the weird, muscular flexing pose the clone is striking. Ramia explains that her clone is an advanced magic spell, making it almost like an ordinary living being that requires food to last. When asked how long it can last, She cryptically answers with just the number 10, leaving them to wonder if she means days. Alexander, starting to understand Ramia's tendency to understate things, correctly guesses that she means a higher value. He reasons that 10 days wouldn't be enough time to train and confidently states that the real answer must be 10 months. With a cheerful, almost eerie smile, Ramia corrects him. It's not 10 days or 10 months. The clone, she reveals, will last for 10 years. The revelation is too much for them to handle. Gertrude looks away with a sigh. Clea is pale with shock, and Alexander breaks out in a nervous sweat, a strained grin on his face as he tries to process the insane time frame. Ramia continues, stating that her clone is powerful enough to handle even high-class demons, so there's no risk of her lasting less than 10 years. Then, she adds a dark condition, unless, of course, if I die. With the clones staying behind to train them, the real Ramia bids farewell in a rather bizarre manner, by waving at herself. The clone and the others wave back, as Alexander comments on the strangeness of the situation. As she departs, Alexander shouts after her, thanking her for everything and asking her to come see them again one day. Gertrude waves a gentle goodbye, while the clone of Ramia raises a fist in solidarity with her original self. The scene flashes back to Ramia's traumatic childhood. A young Ramia angrily pushes away a nun, telling her not to touch her. The nun, her face contorted with a strange mix of anger and desperation, slaps the child. She screams at Ramia, calling her a heartless monster for not crying at her own mother's passing, questioning why she wasn't there to help. Ramia grits her teeth, holding back tears of rage, not sorrow. The memory continues, with Ramia reflecting on how much pain she has experienced again and again. The scene pans over a vast, snowy graveyard filled with countless tombstones, symbolizing the immense loss she has endured throughout her young life. Standing alone in the cold, desolate graveyard, the present-day Ramia states that she has long since cried all of her life's tears, her expression hard and her spirit forged by unending tragedy. The flashback continues. The same nun from before approaches a desolate, younger Ramia. She tells the girl that she is incapable of crying for her mother, much less replacing her, but offers to take care of her from now on. Finally breaking down, the young Ramia sobs uncontrollably. She clings to the nun, begging her not to leave her too, her first real tears finally falling not for her loss, but from the fear of being abandoned again. The perspective shifts to Gertrude's memories. She recalls Ramia's growth over the years, from a small child with a nun, to a rebellious teen, and finally into the formidable, armored hero she is today, always with the watchful nun by her side. Gertrude's mind is flooded with a montage of memories. The nun comforting a young Ramia, the two of them facing a demonic tornado, Ramia studying diligently, playful moments, and even a time when the nun was pregnant, showing a deep, lifelong bond between them. Gertrude remembers Ramia becoming a hero in her own right, yet she never knew of Ramia's true goal. The nun, her face etched with pain, could not begin to imagine the heavy burden Ramia carried. Gertrude looks upon Ramia with deep affection, seeing her as a mentor, an old friend, an ancestor, and an adoptive mother all in one. She knows it might be too much to ask, but she places her faith in her. In a quiet, tender moment, Alexander gently brushes Ramia's hair while she sits patiently. Her expression is soft, a rare glimpse of vulnerability and peace. Ramia gazes at an old, ornate painting. It depicts a legendary party of 4 heroes, a wizard, a warrior in the center, a cloaked figure resembling the nun, and a fighter who looks like Clea. Ramia seems to be contemplating their legacy. As Ramia walks away into the light, a voice wishes her well, praying that at the end of her journey, she will have no more regrets. The voice expresses a deep belief that she deserves happiness more than anyone else. The real Ramia, now on her own, smiles with grim determination. She ties up her arm, ready for the battles ahead, her resolve strengthened by the connection she has just reaffirmed. The scene shifts to a grand throne room. A long-haired knight, Captain Adler, reports to his king. The king welcomes back the Eagle Knights and asks if their expedition went well. Captain Adler reports that they dealt with several monster threats, but more importantly, confirmed that rumors of demons were true. They encountered 2 lower-class demons and forced them to talk, learning of a dire situation. Adler delivers the grave news. A new demon army, led by a powerful new demon lord, is already close to being fully operational. They are too late for a preemptive strike. As the king processes this dire information, he understands the terrifying implication. This is the beginning of a new holy war. Despite the grim news, the king's resolve hardens. He declares there is nothing to fear and grips his throne, his eyes filled with determination. A map reveals that of all the surrounding territories, only their Mathionar kingdom possesses a holy sword, making it their duty to act and initiate the holy trial. The king commands Captain Adler to find 4 people to attempt the holy trial, entrusting the kingdom's fate to him. Adler accepts, revealing he has already informed the Archmage, Sir Eldarius, about the situation. The holy sword gleams as a new hero is about to be born. Adler notes that Sir Eldarius is a half-breed, which is why he has barely aged over the past 30 years. He considers him an ideal ally and a great asset for the coming holy war, having also helped build relationships with the elves of Valalia. The scene cuts to the man himself, the illustrious half-elf Archmage Eldarius Ambrosius. He is dramatically complaining about being called to fight another demon army after only 30 years, sighing that he had hoped to never face one again. A soldier named Otho remarks on the short 30-year gap, noting he wasn't even born then. Eldarius explains that previous gaps between demon lord appearances were 400 and 170 years, lamenting their rotten luck. Eldarius dismisses Otho's naivety about the threat level. Eldarius recalls the last war 30 years ago. He and Aridamus, the Surdron queen of the Valalia elves, fought a demon lord together and barely achieved victory thanks to their teamwork. He admits that even though they've both gotten stronger, he wouldn't be confident fighting those monsters alone. Eldarius explains that demon lords stand at the very top of the demon race, possessing miraculous power and charisma. He admits that while he was part of hero Gertrude's extermination squad, he never faced the Demon King directly, as just feeling its magic from afar was terrifying. Otho foolishly suggests they could just expect a miracle or hope the demon army picks a fight with the powerful nation of Mother Masteravia. Another soldier points out that even those demon lords were eventually beaten. Eldarius explains that their victories are thanks to holy swords, ancient artifacts that reveal the true power of a chosen one. He recounts how over 30 years ago, a woman named Gertrude was deemed worthy of wielding the holy sword of the Faruma's kingdom, earned the title of hero, and led them to victory. He elaborates that 30 years ago, an elite team of 4, including himself and Gertrude, was sent to the Demon Lord's castle. While the main army was distracted, the 4 of them survived and successfully defeated the Demon Lord and all his generals. However, Eldarius gives a grim warning. In contrast to their solid victory, the holy war from 200 years ago ended in a tragedy. He explains that the hero of that time managed to defeat the heinous demon Queen Octasonia, but died in the process, along with his entire expedition group and the king and princess of the Ellerin Kingdom. To make matters worse, 3 of Octasonia's generals survived and have likely been biding their time for the last 200 years. Eldarius fears they will join the new demon army, if they haven't already. Eldarius looks out at the silhouette of Ramia in the distance. He laments that they don't even have a hero yet, and that this new war will not be easy. Nevertheless, he resolves to do all he can to ensure this war ends in a solid victory like the one 30 years ago. The serious mood is broken when Otho cheekily asks the Archmage if the famous hero Gertrude was good-looking and if he tried to make a move on her. The other soldier nervously tries to shut him down. With a confident smirk and a sparkle in his eye, Eldarius proudly declares, "Of course I did. She was divinely hot." He then nonchalantly adds, "Got shot down, though." Eldarius fondly remembers Gertrude as an iron lady and a charismatic leader who shone like a goddess on the battlefield. Yet was also a friendly and gentle person. He tells his men that fighting alongside her, despite the danger, was an unforgettable experience. As he reminisces, Eldarius is struck by a sudden, vivid memory. A question mark appears over his head as he sees an image of his old party. But there's a fourth member he seems to have forgotten. His eyes widen in shock as the memory becomes clear. He sees the full party of 4 from 30 years ago. Himself, hero Gertrude, the elven queen Eurydice, and a small, cheerful nun. The scene flashes back to the planning of that raid. Gertrude states the Demon King Extermination Squad will be led by her, with Eldarius and Eurydice as the other main fighters. She stresses that they must prepare the ground and not just rush in a close combat, or it will be a massacre. A young church official proposes to strengthen their forces with a member from the church. Eldarius expresses concern about taking on a deadweight for such a dangerous mission. However, Gertrude calmly states, that won't be necessary. Gertrude explains that she has already contacted the person who will be their 4th member. When the official asks who she is, Gertrude reassures him, saying the new member is part of the church, so there is nothing to worry about. Suddenly, a cheerful voice yells, "Hey, Gertrude!" The 4th member arrives. It's Ramia, in her nun outfit. She waves hello to the group. Gertrude introduces her, personally confirming that she is highly skilled, despite her unassuming and comically short appearance. Eldarius and the king are deeply skeptical. They point out that Ramia is just wearing regular nun clothes and isn't equipped to be a fighter. Eldarius even notices that the cross symbol on her habit is drawn incorrectly. The church official is outraged, yelling, "Is this a joke?" He fumes that he was planning to send one of their highest-ranked priests. Ramia, with a mischievous grin, cheerfully replies that she doesn't know him either and that it's nice to meet him. The church official pompously announces his title, Archbishop Abigail, personally tasked by the Pope himself. He arrogantly demands to know who this bottom-ranked nun is, but as Ramia hears the name Abigail, her cheerful smile vanishes, replaced by a sudden, sharp look of recognition. The terrified Archbishop, William, stammers that it's a pleasure to meet Ramia again. With a creepy grin, Ramia lets him go, saying she has nothing more to add and that they should proceed as Gertrude wishes. Eldarius and Eurydice are confused by the bizarre scene, but they place their trust in Gertrude's judgment. In his thoughts, Eldarius admits that even after all this time, he couldn't figure Ramia out at all. But Eldarius recalls there was one thing he could say without a doubt about Ramia: her overwhelming, monstrous strength. The memory flashes to Ramia brutally punching a demon in the face, causing its head to explode. The flashback continues, showing the sheer destructive force of Ramia's attack. The demon's exploding head is just the beginning, as her power travels through its body, causing a chain reaction of destruction. The explosive energy erupts from the demon, completely obliterating it and shattering the massive rock formation behind it in a spectacular display of raw power. The flashback ends, returning to the present day. Eldarius stands alone, looking out at the shadowy silhouette of Ramia in the distance, the memory of her terrifying power still fresh in his mind. The scene shifts to a tavern, where Captain Adler is sitting with a shy-looking, dark-haired woman. A drunken second-class mercenary named Gimlet stumbles over to their table, slurring his words as he recognizes Captain Adler. Gimlet drunkenly puts his arm around the woman, asking if she's Adler's girlfriend and crudely offering himself if she isn't. Adler, with a knowing smile, simply advises him against it. Before Adler can finish his warning, the woman acts. With a deadpan expression, she delivers a powerful slap, sending the drunk mercenary flying across the room with a thunderous slap sound effect. As Gimlet lies unconscious in a heap of broken furniture, Adler calmly apologizes for not introducing the woman earlier, explaining that she only recently joined their ranks. Adler introduces her as Sharmila, the strongest knight among his troops besides himself. The other patrons are stunned by her fearsome strength. Adler confirms that she is one of the candidates for the holy trial mentioned by Master Eldarius. Adler gets down to business, stating that he was tasked to find 4 people for the holy trial, and has already confirmed 3. He approaches a brooding, spiky-haired man at the bar, asking him to be the final candidate. The man is revealed to be Kihar, a top-class mercenary known as the Demon Hunter. He scoffs at Adler's offer, suggesting the captain surely has more trustworthy people than a grumpy mercenary. The other knights look on, acknowledging the good team Adler has assembled. Adler's expression hardens as he retorts that he would never allow a self-centered mercenary to get close to the Holy Sword. He explains it's a priceless weapon of the kingdom, and they can't risk a chosen hero who might betray them. Kihar challenges Adler's choice, questioning if a bloodthirsty mercenary like himself, who abandoned the kingdom out of a thirst for revenge on demons, is truly worthy of attempting the holy trial. He reminds Adler that despite his past, he is just a mercenary now. Adler simply smiles, telling Kihar that he still has full confidence in him as his old friend. A brief flashback shows the two of them years ago, with Kihar teasing Adler for being a softie, revealing their long-standing bond. With a sigh, Kihar agrees to join. He admits he doesn't believe he'll be chosen, but he's curious to see the great new hero firsthand. Adler smiles, pleased with his friend's decision, while Sharmila watches them thoughtfully. The scene cuts back to the throne room, where Prime Minister Wellington rushes in, looking deathly pale. He tells the king he has just heard the news of the new Demon Lord, calling it the worst-case scenario. An image of the menacing new Demon Lord appears. The king, however, remains perfectly calm, a serene smile on his face. He looks at his panicked prime minister and says, "All the opposite. It went exactly as planned." Wellington is stunned into silence. The king laughs, patting his prime minister on the shoulder. He teases him, saying that his usual naivety and his mean-looking face don't fit together. Wellington is completely bewildered by the king's strange behavior, stammering, I beg your pardon." The scene opens on a conversation between King Mathanair and his general. The king asks if the general remembers what he was told over 2 months ago, that the holy sword trembled, a reaction that the sage Eldarius theorized was due to the presence of a demon lord. The general nervously confirms he remembers. King Mathanair reveals a shocking truth, flashing back 30 years to the war against the demon Lord Terrafo. He admits to his astonished general that he lied about the sword reacting, a decision he made long ago. The king explains his cunning strategy. The holy sword is more than a weapon. It's a political tool that has built the kingdom's reputation over the last 30 years. Now, in his old age, he has no intention of ending his reign peacefully. With a look of fierce ambition, the king declares his true goal, to be remembered as the legendary king who crushed a demon lord. He tells his general that now, using the sword has a purpose beyond mere deterrence. The king reassures his general that the plan is a win-win scenario. The holy sword will be returned to the hero after the war. He smugly adds that unlike the Faruma's kingdom, which lost its sword, he is not so naive. The general, with a hint of fear and admiration, calls the king scary and asks how he was so certain of finding a demon lord. The king reveals he discussed it with Eldarius years ago, who theorized that another demon lord was already active. The king elaborates that this implies the demon Lord Mandragloria has been active for decades. The fact that she has remained hidden suggests she underestimates humans, giving them the element of surprise to crush her and her forces. With fiery determination, King Mathanair declares that the time has come to prove humanity's superiority. He proclaims they will conquer the Dark Lands, stating that the barbarous demons have been around for far too long. The scene shifts to a conversation between Eldarius and 2 guards, a man and a woman. Eldarius muses that he's never heard of holy swords reacting before and suspected King Gromwell wasn't being honest. The female guard asks why he started strengthening the city barrier, and Eldarius explains it's wise to lessen any risks, given his experience with demons. The male guard, Otho, interrupts with a sinister smile, his eyes turning black. He menacingly asks what would happen if a demon like him assassinated someone important, shocking Eldarius and the female guard. Immediately, the other guards react to Otho's demonic transformation, surrounding him and pointing their poleaxes at him, ready for a confrontation. The guards angrily question Otho, shouting that he's a demon with black scara. Below, Eldarius watches silently, his face shadowed by his hat, as he processes Otho's betrayal. Eldarius, unfazed, tells Otho to stop fooling around. He correctly deduces that Otho drank an experimental potion he created, one that only gives the appearance of demon eyes for aesthetic purposes. Otho laughs, admitting Eldarius is too perceptive. Eldarius fondly scolds him, remembering Otho has always been a brat. He warns that this habit of fooling around will get him in trouble one day, as a small flashback shows a younger Otho with him. The light-hearted moment shatters. Otho's demeanor darkens as he says, "That's why," and in a shocking twist, violently snaps the neck of the guard next to him. Eldarius stares in wide-eyed horror. As the guard's body falls, Otho reveals his twisted reasoning, stating that he always considered Eldarius to be a parental figure. This statement hangs in the air as Eldarius is frozen in disbelief and shock. Snapping out of his shock, Eldarius is consumed by pure rage. His face contorts in fury as he screams, "You bastard," and launches himself towards Otho in a blur of motion. Eldarius unleashes a powerful blast from his hand. However, he is surprised to find his attack blocked by a protective sphere. Inside it, he sees the silhouette of an imp-like figure and realizes a strong elf has been guarding the city from the tower. From the protective energy emerges a new challenger, a small, muscular, imp-like demon boy. He apologizes for the sudden attack and, with a confident smile, introduces himself as Nymph, ready to enjoy the fight. Nymph stands completely unscathed, much to Eldarius's disbelief. Nymph mockingly returns the sentiment, impressed by Eldarius's 4 layers of natural magical defenses. Eldarius questions how the demon boy got so far into the kingdom alone, but Nymph dismisses the chat, reminding Eldarius to show respect to his elders. His face grim and blood-spattered, Eldarius gives his opponent a simple, deadly command: "So be a good boy and die already." Below, Nymph's eyes glow ominously in the darkness. A massive explosion rocks the top of the tower. Far below, guards look up in confusion, with one wondering aloud if Master Eldarius is simply testing his spells again, oblivious to the life-or-death battle happening above. Eldarius reappears, looking frustrated. He admits he was way off the mark about Nymph's power. He deduces Nymph is part of a demon army, to which Nymph confirms, offering no thanks for the insight. Eldarius analyzes the situation. With Nymph's level of power, he concludes there is no doubt he is a high-class demon. This leads him to question why a general would be rushing in alone. Nymph bursts out laughing, calling the idea that he is a general nonsense. He argues that while he is a high-class demon, he is far too young for such a rank, even claiming he's fought one of Terrafo's generals before. Eldarius's eye widens, his strategic calculation shattering as he realizes his assessment is fundamentally wrong. Continuing the confrontation, Nymph clarifies his rank with an unsettling calm. He confirms he is indeed a high-class demon, but only a lieutenant. Eldarius stares back, the horror dawning on his face as he processes the implication. As Nymph raises his hand, a massive, terrifying shadowy figure, the demon Lord Mandragloria, manifests behind him. Her sheer presence dwarfs everything on the battlefield, confirming Eldarius's worst fears. Eldarius is completely overwhelmed. He senses Mandragloria's creepy aura is on a completely different level from a standard high-class demon. He notes it doesn't feel like a typical demon lord's aura either, different from Terrafo's, leaving him to wonder in terror, what the hell is that thing? With a twisted grin, Nymph asks Eldarius if he gets it now. He then delivers the final, crushing blow to the sage's spirit. Another one of their generals has already infiltrated the city. Eldarius can only sweat in utter despair. Meanwhile, in a different location, the scene shifts to a flashback. A young boy in a cap runs playfully down a corridor, taunting his friend to catch him if he can. While looking back at his friend, the running boy collides with a large, unseen figure. He tumbles to the ground, dropping his cap and stammering an apology. The boy, looking up with wide, fearful eyes, realizes he has bumped into a tall woman and is now hiding behind her leg. His friend looks on from a distance, confused by the sudden stop. The woman, revealed to be Ramia with her signature large glasses, peers down at the two boys. They stare back, frozen in fear by her imposing and unusual appearance. Ramia flashes a wide, unsettling smile. This is the final straw for the two boys, who erupt in terrified screams. As the children flee in terror, Ramia innocently wonders aloud what she did. An off-screen companion suggests that it was simply her appearance that scared them away. Ramia, looking offended, comments on how rude the children were. In the background, a sinister shadow monster with tentacles lurks, revealing the true reason for the children's presence and fear. The shadow monster attacks, sending a dark tendril whipping through the air towards the fleeing children. The tendril swoops down, but instead of harming the children, it merely snatches the cap from the boy's head, leaving him confused. The boy wonders where his hat went, while his friend questions if it fell off earlier. The scene then cuts away from the flashback, transitioning to an alley where two mercenaries, a man and a woman, are taking a break. The man, Gimlet, complains about a slap that still hurts, reminding him of training with Master Marcia. His companion, a woman with short black hair, tells him he had it coming and should ease up on the drinking. She then brings up that a certain Mr. Kihar will likely join the Demon Lord Extermination Squad. The woman scoffs at the idea of such a risky assignment, saying one would have to be overpowered or suicidal to face generals head-on. However, a greedy smile spreads across her face as she considers the juicy bounty on generals who are past their prime. The narration shifts focus to an assassin named Cole. Despite being weaker than other first-class mercenaries, his danger comes from his exceptional skill in finding the perfect moment to strike and finish his targets. His record includes a group mission to exterminate a middle-class demon. It is revealed that Cole himself was responsible for most of the fatal wounds on that demon. The narration concludes that, to him, demons of any strength are nothing more than potential targets. Gimlet daydreams about the ultimate bounty, Sicarios Marpina, a demon general who survived the Holy War 200 years ago. Though the general is long past his prime, the guild bounty on his head is still intact, promising a life of luxury. As if summoned by his words, the very demon general they were discussing, Sicarios Marpina, appears behind the woman. With a fan of cards in hand, he wryly agrees that finding him would indeed be quite the coincidence, leaving Gimlet utterly dumbfounded. Sicarios examines the wanted poster, remarking that it's a rather nice drawing of his younger self. He then politely asks the stunned Gimlet if he might keep it, adding to the surreal and terrifying situation. The demon general drops the polite facade. He admits he's supposed to be incognito, and that being seen is an issue. He puts a finger to his lips, delivering a chilling ultimatum: stay silent about him, or he'll have to end them. With a sigh, Sicarios laments that youngsters have trouble listening as he unleashes a deadly slash. The woman, clutching the wanted poster, thinks in terror that her age doesn't matter. An old monster is still a monster. To the woman's surprise, Sicarios gives her a thumbs up, telling her she knows better. He thanks her for the wanted poster and casually wishes her a good day, creating a surreal sense of safety after a death threat. The woman erupts in joy, screaming that she's alive. Her celebration is cut short as Sicarios appears behind her one last time. He gives her a final, ominous piece of advice not to stay around today, before giving her a dismissive smack and vanishing, leaving her to ponder his strange warning. Just as the mercenary celebrates being alive, her joy is cut short. Dark tendrils shoot out and wrap around her body, trapping her. Her face contorts in terror as she realizes her ordeal is far from over. The source of the tendrils is revealed to be an imposing, horned demoness with large glasses, Lady Osumaheim. She leans in close to the captured mercenary, apologizing for taking her time and then asking with a sweet but menacing tone if she would be so kind as to be their guide, since they're a bit lost. The mercenary is paralyzed with fear. She mentally lists the demon's features: huge glasses, spiky hair, a massive central horn. Lady Osumaheim tells her she can speak now, but the mercenary can only think about how this demon is taller than any she's ever encountered. As the mercenary stammers, her tongue is suddenly grabbed. She realizes with horror that this demon couldn't possibly be who she thinks it is. Osumaheim inspects the tongue, remarking how strange it is. Another muscular, masked demoness, Tsunagumo, holds the mercenary captive. She states that Lady Osumaheim said she could talk and can clearly hear. Since the mercenary isn't answering, Tsunagumo logically assumes she has no trouble, yet remains silent. Tsunagumo's threat becomes explicit. With a crazed look, she asks the terrified mercenary if, since her tongue is of no use, she should lend a hand and tear it apart. Sicario's Marpina, the grandfather, steps in, telling Tsunagumo not to be too harsh. Tsunagumo retorts, calling him grandfather and telling him to be quiet. She scolds him for his lack of dignity as a butler, pointing out that he let a man go and was disrespectful to their lady. Lady Osumaheim dismisses the argument with a cheerful smile. She tells Tsunagumo it's okay and not to be too harsh, reasoning that the little guy is just scared. Despite her cheerful demeanor, Osumaheim's threat is real. She gives the mercenary 3 more seconds to answer, after which Tsunagumo is free to kill him. The mercenary, caught between terror and a strange sense of the demon's kindness, prepares to answer. Just as Osumaheim counts to 3, the mercenary screams her compliance, shouting that she will take them anywhere they want to go. With a wide, sharp-toothed grin, Lady Osumaheim is pleased. She tells the mercenary to show them the way to the Mercenaries' Guild headquarters. The terrified mercenary gives a panicked salute. A moment later, Tsunagumo gets into an argument with Sicarios, telling her grandfather to give back the wanted poster he took, insisting that it's not good to steal. Sicarios protests that he really wants to keep it. The 3 demons, a united front of imposing power, stand before the mercenary. As they argue about the stolen poster, the mercenary can only think, what kind of nonsensical conversation are they even having now, while desperately trying to stay alive. Tsunagumo is suddenly overcome with gratitude, exclaiming how kind the little man is for so easily giving away his precious belonging. She declares that he is not worthless trash after all. The mercenary, meanwhile, is just trying to survive the encounter. The mercenary reflects on the bizarre situation. She thought demons were simple-minded brutes, but their behavior is wildly unpredictable. Acting pathetic was effective in making them underestimate her, but every interaction feels like walking on a landmine. A horrifying realization dawns on the mercenary. She is standing before almost every general of a demon army. She questions how the capital's forces could possibly win against them, especially since the demons seem to get along so well, defying the stereotype of prideful monsters unable to cooperate. Her mind races, questioning how these massive demons are walking through the city without triggering any alarms. She looks around this seemingly normal street, trying to make sense of the situation. She panics, remembering Gimlet. Even though he shouted, nobody reacted, and his body should have been noticed by now. Just then, another second-class mercenary named Barold appears, asking what's going on and expressing surprise at seeing Cole. Barold complains that Cole appeared out of nowhere, scaring him. As he speaks, Cole points behind him with a look of terror, trying to warn him of the danger lurking just out of sight. A black tendril silently snakes up behind Barold and squishes his head, cutting him off mid-sentence. The tendril then retracts, having dispatched him with chilling efficiency. Lady Osumaheim's tendril chomps down on Barold's entire body, consuming him in a single, brutal motion as the mercenary watches in horror. At that moment, she finally understands the situation. The mercenary realizes there must be some kind of invisibility spell surrounding the three demons. This explains why no one else in the city has reacted to their presence. The horrifying truth becomes clear. Only those who get close enough can see and hear the demons. And anyone who stumbles into their invisible sphere is killed and eaten on the spot, leaving no evidence behind. The mercenary watches in disgust and terror as the tendrils writhe. She realizes they aren't just tentacles. They're powerful enough to digest a grown man in a matter of seconds. Fan-fucking-tastic. The demons casually chat amongst themselves. Sicarios proudly comments on his granddaughter Tsunagumo's skilled and easy gobbling of the man. Tsunagumo tells him she should handle that stuff, as his own kills are horribly messy. As I mentioned, the last guy spreading blood everywhere, and reference Gimlet, the mercenary's blood runs cold. She realizes they know, and her cover is blown. The mercenary's mind races. With her cover blown, she calculates her best move for survival. She needs to pit the demons against the entire guild to create a distraction, a fight she knows she needs to start at once. She also questions their motives for sneaking around when they are so powerful. Playing the part of a nervous guide, the mercenary suggests that sneaking into the guild will be difficult, as human buildings aren't made for demons. But Lady Osumaheim, with a devilish grin, dismisses the idea of stealth, insisting, no, the front door is just fine. The scene cuts back to the intense battle at the tower. A mysterious, shadowy figure has just deflected one of Eldarius's attacks, and now the three powerful demons stand before the Grand Mercenary Guild headquarters, ready to make their entrance. The shadowy figure, the demon general Chronicles, comments on Eldarius's skill. He then turns to his lieutenant, Nymph, and asks if he can leave this powerful mage to him. Nymph eagerly begs Master Chronicles to let him fight. Chronicles agrees to focus on his main goal, but then scolds Nymph, reminding him that he was told to create a bigger barrier before fighting, as the previous explosion must have alerted the city. Nymph realizes his mistake with a guilty oops. Accepting his new task, Chronicles unleashes a torrent of magical scrolls, preparing a powerful and wide-ranging spell. The spell papers burn, creating a massive, transparent dome that engulfs the entire tower and the surrounding area, sealing off the battlefield from the outside world. Eldarius watches in shock as the barrier forms. Chronicles informs Nymph that he can now fight to his heart's content without the city being alerted, showing his complete confidence in the spell. Eldarius is stunned by the perfect concealment barrier and its ridiculous range, recognizing the insane skill involved. He realizes his opponents have a main goal beyond simply assassinating him. The name Chronicles strikes a chord with Eldarius, who realizes it's from a well-known folktale about a Grim Reaper. Meanwhile, Nymph offers to let Chronicles heal his wounds, but the general declines, stating it wouldn't be fair. As Chronicles announces his departure, Eldarius, attempting to buy time, taunts him, asking why such a big shot would come to a measly human city. He knows it's reckless, but feels he must try to stop the monster. In response, Chronicles reveals his true face, a horrifying, bare skull with rows of jagged teeth. Eldarius can only stare in stunned silence, his taunt dying on his lips. Eldarius realizes with dawning horror that it's not a mask. His entire face is a skull. Chronicles acknowledges that since the humans defeated Terrafo and his army, they aren't harmless. Eldarius grits his teeth as the situation gets progressively worse. With a wicked grin, Chronicles announces he has more urgent matters to attend to and leaves Eldarius to face his two lieutenants. Eldarius is shocked to hear that he'll be facing two opponents. A second lieutenant, a tall and imposing demoness, appears. She casually touches Eldarius's magical shield, remarking on its impressive 5-layered thickness for an elf, or perhaps a human. The new lieutenant, Korkilla, tells Eldarius to calm down, claiming she was just touching a bit. She declares that fighting is a pain and decides she will simply act as a referee for the fight between Eldarius and Nymph, casually calling her General Chernobro. Chronicles, still present, sternly reminds Korkila that he is technically her general now and that she should stop calling him Chernobro in public. Korkila, however, feigns deafness, cheekily repeating the nickname. Korkila continues to push, asking if it's okay. Chernakog lets out a frustrated growl, clearly annoyed by the lack of discipline from both of his lieutenants, Nimp and Korkila. Giving up, Chernakog tells them to do what they want and begins to depart. Korkila cheers and gets ready for the friendly death match, cracking her knuckles with anticipation. As the two demons bicker about the fight's rules, Eldarius finds a small glimmer of hope. Their arrogance and tendency to look down on him makes the situation slightly less desperate, giving him a potential opening. While engaging in nonsensical banter about the rules of their fight, Eldarius desperately tries to contact someone named Cornelia, but gets no answer. He knows he doesn't have much time before the demons finish their nonsense and attack. In a moment of desperation, Eldarius manages to establish contact with a young witch named Molly. He shouts her name, telling her to listen well, as it's a matter of life and death. Eldarius rapidly explains the dire situation. Multiple high-class demons attacking, his tower massacred, trapped in a barrier with two of them while their boss and another demon roam the city. Molly, stunned, asks if he's kidding. He confirms he is not. The full weight of the situation hits Molly. Her face twists into a mask of manic terror as she screams the only appropriate question for the moment. Aren't we royally fucked? Eldarius gives Molly her urgent mission. Rush to Cornelia at the guild's headquarters to inform everyone. He adds that Adler and Sharmila should also be there. With a cry of "Why yes!" Molly dashes off into the alley, a lone messenger carrying news of the impending doom. The scene shifts to the mercenary guild, where the mood is festive and completely oblivious to the impending danger. Two mercenaries, Adler and his companion, lead a toast, vowing to show the demons what they're made of. Meanwhile, Sharmila comments on how noisy they are, while another mercenary laments that Cole and Ranson will regret not staying for the party. Sharmila strikes up a conversation with Cornelia, correctly identifying her as the renowned first-class mercenary. As Cornelia graciously accepts the compliment, she clutches a mysterious, ornate sphere, explaining it's a lucky charm that has been in her family for generations and helps her feel less stressed. Intrigued, Sharmila asks for a closer look. Cornelia agrees, but warns her to be careful as it's quite heavy. Sharmila fumbles the object, and it crashes onto the table with immense force. She examines the complex device, realizing it's an advanced magical tool, far more than a simple charm, and made of an insanely heavy material. Sharmila explains that the object appears to be a teleportation device or a one-sided communication tool. She notes that such devices are particularly hard to make, are single-use with a limited range, and require a skilled user to operate. Sharmila further elaborates that Master Eldarius builds advanced communication devices for his best students, capable of two-sided communication and even vision. She deduces that this object's basic, one-sided nature might be to allow for a much greater range, implying a second device exists somewhere out in the world. One of the other mercenaries suggests they show it to Eldarius, but Cornelia reveals he has already examined it and couldn't confirm what it was. Sharmila looks at Cornelia with renewed interest, remarking that between her unnatural strength and this artifact, she is a young lady full of mysteries. In response, Cornelia casually flexes a surprisingly muscular arm. With a confident smile, she simply states that she heard from her mother that their family's incredible strength just kind of runs in the family. Sharmila processes this new information. Cornelia's strength and the artifact are both family heirlooms, and she was also personally chosen by Master Eldarius for the hero ritual. As she wonders what it all could mean, the scene flashes to a vision of silhouetted figures before a brightly glowing, otherworldly gateway. The chapter concludes with a chilling close-up of Lady Osumaheim's sinister smile, her face adorned with glowing demonic markings as she looms over the unsuspecting city, a promise of the chaos to come. The scene opens on a secluded, rustic house nestled within a dark forest, setting a mysterious tone for the events to come. Inside, Alexander looks at his bandaged hand, filled with anticipation. He thinks to himself that today marks the beginning of his training with the renowned Lady Ramia. With a look of fierce determination, Alexander steels himself. He resolves to be serious and not be shaken by any of the weird things he anticipates she'll pull, confident that he's getting used to her antics. A knock comes from the door, and a voice calls out for him. Full of energy, Alexander swings the door open and bellows a cheerful, "Good morning, ma'am." But standing at the door isn't the imposing figure he expected. Instead, he's greeted by a tiny, chibi version of Ramia, who looks up at him with sparkling eyes. Alexander is utterly dumbfounded, breaking out in a cold sweat as a giant question mark appears beside his head, completely thrown by this unexpected development. From his towering perspective, the miniature Ramia looks up with a mischievous grin, seemingly unfazed by his confusion. The tiny Ramia enthusiastically declares she's ready to go, but Alexander, still reeling in shock, can only shout for her to wait a goddamn minute. Still in disbelief, Alexander grabs a ruler to measure her, confirming that she is, in fact, only 85 centimeters tall. His mind struggles to process the absurdity of the situation. He mutters that while he knew she was short, he didn't think she was that short. Ramia, with a deadpan expression, asks what about it. Ultimately, Alexander decides to stop questioning it and just go. To his surprise, Ramia hops onto his shoulder, calling it a fun seat and declaring it part of his training. She then informs him they're going to meet up with someone named Clea. As they walk, Alexander tries to convince himself that he's just imagining things and that Ramia has always looked like this, picturing her in a large, fluffy coat. He concludes that he simply didn't remember well and tells himself it's time to move on, trying to accept the tiny Ramia currently sitting on his shoulder. His fragile reality shatters completely when they meet their party. Ramia is now a muscular giant, effortlessly carrying a blonde woman, Clea, under her arm. From his shoulder, the tiny Ramia grins as Alexander looks on in pure horror. The blonde woman, Clea, cheerfully greets Alexander, but then asks with concern about the tiny Miss Ramia he's carrying. Clea points out the obvious contradiction, asking if the Lady Ramia with her isn't way too big. The mental gymnastics become too much for Alexander, who breaks down, screaming that he's had similar delusions and assumed he just remembered wrong. As both the giant and tiny versions of Ramia sparkle and pose, a strange, floating creature appears between a speechless Alexander and Clea. Alexander advises Clea not to force herself to understand. Suddenly, a new pair appears, a boy named Kusa and another version of Ramia, who begin a strange ritual, clapping as their hands glow. Kusa and Ramia shout as they channel energy, looking as if they are about to unleash a powerful attack, while Clea and Alexander look on in shock. But nothing happens. Alexander closes his eyes in resignation, while Ramia explains that they were just playing, doing an imaginary attack that Lil Kusa had heard about. Leaning against a tree, a defeated Alexander can only stare blankly, while Kusa and Ramia look back at him with wide, innocent eyes. Alexander collapses, utterly mentally exhausted before the training has even begun, his mind haunted by the various, conflicting forms of Ramia. He looks up and asks Ramia if she was just messing around when she said she would train them. Ramia gives a sly, toothy grin before her expression suddenly turns neutral, leaving him hanging. With a menacing look, Ramia finally reveals the purpose behind the chaos. Being able to stay composed while encountering the strange and the unknown is, itself, a crucial skill to train. As the group continues, Clea asks what Ramia's real body is doing. Alexander agrees it's a good question, but the giant Ramia simply replies, "Nothing special," while playfully smothering him, completely downplaying her other activities. The scene abruptly cuts to the Darklands, where Ramia's real body is in the middle of a brutal brawl, effortlessly kicking away monstrous demons. To her, this is just the usual. A montage of violence unfolds as Ramia's real body, a whirlwind of power, tears through hordes of demons with devastating punches and kicks, leaving a trail of destruction. With her comrades, she unleashes a powerful blast of energy, obliterating the demons in their path in a brilliant flash of light. A new group of demons appears, led by a figure in a helmet. He notes their group is unusual. Another demon accuses them of interrupting their mission. The leader, a bearded Rakasha, nonchalantly asks them to repeat what their mission was, feigning ignorance. A female demon cries out that they lost 8 men in an instant. Her comrade, trying to stay upbeat, calls out to a spiky-haired warrior for help, forgetting his name in the heat of the moment. The spiky-haired demon, grinning through the pain, insists he's completely fine. Suddenly, a massive scorpion-like monster appears behind him, ready to strike. The warriors look up in horror as a terrifying, shadowy creature with glowing eyes materializes before them, its form twisted and menacing. It wasn't just one. An entire swarm of the shadowy, winged creatures descends from the sky, swarming the battlefield. The female demon curses, realizing the Mantacranias were alerted by the fight. In that moment, the spiky-haired demon is pierced through the shoulder by a powerful energy beam. The bearded Rakasha warrior stands defiant against the new threat, yelling at the oversized bug not to look down on them. He channels his energy, crackling lightning and dark power gathering around his fists as he prepares to unleash a devastating counterattack. With a tremendous roar, he releases the stored energy in a massive explosion of dark power, blowing the creature to pieces. Meanwhile, a powerful, masked mid-boss taunts the heroes. He notes their fight was pretty good, but warns them to get used to fighting opponents stronger than them, before vowing to massacre them all himself. As the masked demon stands his ground, the bearded Rakasha and his female companion leap into the air, launching a coordinated assault from 2 sides. The 2 warriors clash in a flash of light and power, their determined faces set in grim resolve against each other. The 2 heroes combine their strengths, unleashing 2 powerful beams of energy that strike the masked demon simultaneously from above. The overwhelming power of the combined attack slams into the demon, who struggles to hold his ground against the immense force. As the energy surges downwards, the ground beneath the demon cracks and shatters, unable to withstand the sheer force of the attack. The masked demon grunts and strains, his own body becoming a container for the massive energy as dark tendrils wrap around his arms. The pressure becomes too much. The demon's body begins to grotesquely contort and crush inwards under the immense force he tried to contain. The intense energy converges, causing the demon to implode upon himself in a vortex of dark matter, crushing him into nothingness. After the dust settles, only the demon's shattered helmet is left, falling to the ground in the rain as his companions look on. The scene cuts back to the training grounds, where Alexander, Clea, and Kusa are resting. Kusa sits between them, looking cheerful. Alexander realizes with dawning horror that Kusa is also participating in the training. Ramia appears, confirming that the boy has potential she can help with. Alexander gulps, fearing what's to come. Leaning in with a wide, terrifying smile, Ramia holds up a small, stringy object. With a crazed look in her eyes, she gives her next command, "Eat this." Alexander panics, shouting "Wait!" repeatedly. Clea, trying to rationalize, wonders if they'll receive great power from eating the strands of hair. Alexander dismisses the idea as ridiculous. To Alexander's horror, Ramia confirms Clea's guess is correct. She decides to start with the 2 of them, and with no other choice, they reluctantly open their mouths to receive the strange offering. As soon as they consume the hair, a powerful dark aura envelopes both Alexander and Clea, signaling an immediate surge of energy. Their eyes go blank, as if they are in a trance. Ramia, with a grin, gives them a thumbs up and encourages them to test their new power by hitting one of the nearby trees. Alexander and Clea adopt fighting stances, their bodies brimming with newfound energy as they prepare to strike. They unleash their attacks simultaneously. Clea's kick sends out a wave of energy, while Alexander's punch creates a focused blast, both striking the trees with explosive force. Ramia calmly compliments their efforts as pretty good. Alexander and Clea, panting and sweating from the exertion, can't believe the power they just displayed, thinking it must be a cheat or have a catch. Ramia confirms their suspicions with a close-up on her intense eye. The truth, she explains, is that this primordial energy they received will gradually leak out of them. She elaborates that their bodies will naturally reject the foreign energy, causing it to dissipate completely in a few days. Alexander asks what the point is, to which Ramia responds with a sinister, shadowy grin. Appearing in her muscular form, Ramia explains that exhausting their bodies to extreme levels while filled with this energy will train them far more effectively. She then introduces two of her other forms as their personal coaches. The real training is about to begin. Turning to Kusa, Ramia presents him with a special version of the power-up just for him. Kusa blushes, his eyes sparkling with excitement at the special treatment. Kusa excitedly yells, "My turn," and unleashes a hero punch. He's thrilled to be getting a super-duper version, but his punch lands on the tree with a pathetic tap, doing no damage at all. Ramia explains that his punch is weaker because his treatment was indeed special. She reveals that unlike Alexander and Clea, Kusa is naturally gifted from birth, just like his grandmother. However, Ramia states that Kusa has a severe mindset problem. To address this, she gave him a special variant of the energy that actually restrains his current abilities. She tells him that until he understands and improves his mindset, he'll be a below-average boy with no magic. The scene then shifts back to the grim battlefield in the Darklands. Back in the Darklands, the bearded Rakasha warrior taunts the remaining shadowy creatures, callously stating he wasn't the one who killed their buddy. He leaps towards them, declaring that they have a bad temper and need some correction, ready to continue the fight. Meanwhile, an argument breaks out amongst the other demons. Their leader, Bolram, wants to flee, but the female warrior, Malhuri, fiercely refuses, seeing a chance to fight while Ramia is distracted. The bearded Rakasha, Dantoil, prepares to power up once again, his hand crackling with energy as he faces down another shadow creature. Bolram furiously reprimands Malhuri for her insubordination, warning her that unleashing her power here would be seen as aggression toward Ramia and would be a death sentence. However, Dantoil steps in, shutting Bolram down. He reveals that no one ever considered Bolram their true leader, and the title was only given to him for safer travel. Looming over the terrified Bolram, Dantoil calls him a coward who has forgotten the pride of a Rakasha, questioning how he dares order them to run from Ramia, the one who massacred their men. The focus shifts back to Ramia's main body, who leaps high into the air, re-engaging the swarm of mantocrania creatures. She descends upon them like a meteor, plunging a dark energy blade straight through the head of one of the shadow creatures. Ramia grabs the creature's head, commenting not bad, before nonchalantly cracking its neck with immense force, bidding it bye-bye as it dissipates. The bearded Rakasha warrior, Dantoil, screams in agony as he is caught and crushed by a powerful, unseen force, seemingly from Ramia's attack. Ramia spins like a whirlwind, launching Dantoil into the air and sending him crashing down onto the floating battlefield with tremendous force. A massive, grotesque creature, Vimudi, emerges from the chaotic landscape, its body a fusion of dark energy and monstrous flesh, chained to the floating island. The swarms of mantocrania creatures ignore the larger demon, flying past him as they converge on their primary target, Ramia. The giant demon, Vimudi, roars at the mantocranias, telling the bugs to move aside. He declares his intent to crush the midget Ramia first, promising to deal with them afterward. Vimudi turns his attention to Dantoil, who is stuck headfirst in the ground. The giant demon taunts him, refusing to believe that Ramia's single move could have killed him and vowing not to let him off easily. Vimudi lets out a terrifying roar and fires a massive energy beam from his gaping maw, aimed directly at the helpless Dantoil. The beam strikes the floating island, causing a massive explosion that tears through the landscape, demonstrating Vamuti's incredible power. From a crater, a single, bandaged fist emerges. Dantoil has survived the blast, his hand clenched in defiance as debris rains down. Vamuti is utterly stunned that Dantoil could damage him after he had unleashed his full power. As Dantoil gets back up, Vamuti realizes his opponent's strength wasn't purely physical. The scene cuts back to the training ground. Alexander complains about the sudden difficulty spike, saying it's harder than Gertrude's military training. Ramia then reveals a shocking truth. She trained Gertrude, implying her own methods are far more grueling. Ramia warns them her training is no joke, offering them a chance to quit now. She mentions she gave Clea a week's break out of compassion for what she'd been through, highlighting the intensity of what's to come. Despite being exhausted, drenched in sweat, and terrified, both Alexander and Clea shout in unison, "Of course not," their determination unwavering. Ramia grins, approving of their spirit. Meanwhile, Kusa begs her for hints, but she coldly tells him not to look at her with those eyes and that trying to vomit the hair won't work. Back in the Darklands, Vamuti has a change of heart. He declares that instead of an execution, his fight with the armored Ramia will be a glorious duel to the death. Malhari, seeing her ally become a battle junkie, decides she's had enough and leaves. Vamuti roars at the armored Ramia, his opponent. "Nameless masked human, our battle will be legendary." Before their duel can begin, a brilliant slash of light cuts through the battlefield from an unknown source, silencing Vamuti's challenge. The blindingly fast attack tears through the sky, vaporizing the Mantocrania creatures and a chunk of the landscape in an instant. The colossal floating island, the carcass of a long-dead giant, is sliced clean in two by the single, impossibly powerful strike. The world seems to shatter as the massive island begins to break apart and crumble into the abyss below. Caught in the destruction, Ramia shouts in alarm as the ground beneath her gives way and the island begins to fall. She curses, shocked. She realizes the anti-gravity energy that kept the Colossus's carcass afloat was nullified by that single, insane attack. Ramia lands heavily on a piece of falling debris. She notes that the larger part of the island is, for some reason, still floating, indicating the attack was precise. The battle comes to a halt. Bolram, clinging to a ledge, calls for a temporary truce, wondering who is behind the attack. Elsewhere, Malhari looks on in disbelief, while Ramia and Kusa stare into the distance. In the pouring rain, amidst the falling debris, a lone, silhouetted figure stands on the horizon, the source of the cataclysmic attack. All the combatants can do is stare in stunned silence. The mysterious, silent figure looms over the battlefield as debris rains down. Malhari and the armored Ramia can only stare up at the newcomer, dwarfed by its presence. A close-up on Malhari's face reveals pure terror. Drenched in rain and sweat, her eyes are wide with utter disbelief and fear at the power she is witnessing. The scene suddenly cuts back to the training ground. A muscular version of Ramia stops Alexander's punch. Seeing an opening, Clea cries out, and Alexander redirects his attack, yelling as he throws a powerful punch. He lands a solid punch right across the face of one of Ramia's clones, the impact echoing through the training ground. Alexander grins triumphantly, celebrating his first clean hit and gloating that it's what she gets for dropping her guard. However, he notices his fist hasn't moved her an inch, and her expression remains unervingly blank. Ramia looks down at him, her eyes empty, and utters a single, censored curse word. A horrifying realization dawns on Alexander's face as he remembers her words. The clones and original are all mentally connected. The punch he just landed wasn't just on a clone. It was felt by the real Ramia in the middle of her life-or-death battle in the Darklands.